Hey guys, it's Cassie here with MATHOMG. I had a request to do a video of parametric lines with a little bit more in-depth scenario. So I've taken what we did in the first video that you can check out, and I've made a separate video where we actually have parameters that are not just 0 and 1. So let's take a look. So in this example, our parameters are going to be 3 and 6. How I'm going to break this down is we have to remember x and y, we are used to saying x is independent and y is dependent. When you add in this third parameter, t is now your independent variable and x and y are both dependent on t. So I'm going to rewrite these points so that I just have x and t and y and t. And that's going to be the first thing that I'm going to write down. Then my mission is to create two line equations, one for x and one for y. And so I wrote those out in formulas that are similar to y equals mx plus b. So we're going to find our initial x and then our change in x over change in t times t, because t again is our independent variable. And then for y, it's going to be our initial y, our change in y over our change in t times t. And so how we're going to do this, our game plan, is just going to be to use these equations, use our points, and write these two linear equations, one for x and one for y. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to label our first coordinates. So this is going to be t1 and x1. This is going to be t2. I'm going to have a hard time remembering to do that. t2 and then x2. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to plug them in and find our rate of change. And then we can use that to help find our initial. So to find our rate of change is just like when you've done slope in the past, except you have x's and t's instead of y's and x's. So x goes on top, so it's going to be 3 minus negative 2 on top. So that's going to be our change in x. And then we're going to do our change in t on the bottom, so 6 minus 3. And so that's going to give us 5/3 as this portion right here, our change in x over change in t. So far we have x equals initial x plus 5/3 t. And then our last thing we have to find is this initial x value here. So we're going to plug in one of our points. I'm going to pick 6,3 since it doesn't have any negatives in it. It's typically easier. And I'm going to solve for my initial x. So I'm going to plug in 3 equals initial x plus 5/3 times 6. So 3 equals our initial x plus, and then this 3 is going to cancel with this 6 and make it a 2, so that's going to become 10. Then I subtract 10 on both sides. So negative 7 is our initial x. So our parametric equation for our x is going to be x equals negative 7 plus 5/3 t. And if I wanted to double check that and make sure I had done the right equation, which I already did, I would plug in my t values here and make sure I get that out as my x value. Sorry about that. The lights go off if no one is in the room, and they go off after like 5 minutes. So when I'm on my prep, the lights keep shutting off and it's super annoying. So I'm back, lights are on, good to go. And now we're going to do the second set. So we found our parametric equation for x. Now we're going to find our parametric equation for y. So again, I'm going to label this, it's t1, y1, t2, y2, and I'm going to find my change in y over change in t first. So it's going to be 6 minus 3 over 6 minus 3, which is going to simplify to 3 over 3, or 1. I plug that in, so y is equal to my initial y plus 1t. And then to find my initial y, I'm going to plug in one of my points. So I'll just do 3, 3. So 3 is equal to my initial y plus 1 times 3. So my initial y, if I do 3 plus, this is going to become 3 over here. If I solve for my initial y, it will be 0, which should make sense. So then my equation for y is just t, which we can see that that is true here because our y and t values are the same. So my two equations, let me just write this in a clear way. X is equal to negative 7 plus 5/3 t, and then y would just be equal to t. And that's it. That is my parametric equations between those 2 points using those parameters of t. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments. I will do my very best when I have free time to answer them and help you become more successful at math.